everyone. Hello. Welcome. So this is my very first conversation that I've had in a Substract live like this, and I'm joined by the most exciting, lovely guest, Tony
Oh,
Jones, who we've got such a treat for you because you've got a book out today, haven't you, Tony? Can you tell us a little bit about who you are and what's going on?
sure. So this is the launch party, Jo. I don't know if you realise that, but this is the launch party for my new book because it's my first event talking about it. And I'm going to show you the book, even though my publisher officially said 7 o'clock tonight. But I feel like you guys deserve a sneak peek, and I think you can appreciate this because it's got some lovely sunny yellow. So
Yeah.
I'm Tony, and I'm the founder of the Shelf Help Club, which is the world's first self-help book club. I've been reading and doing and sharing self-help for 10 years this year, and so I thought, when I'm kind of pondering on what have I actually learned in 10 years of doing self-help and what difference has it made to me, then it was time to write my own book. And I wanted to do something very accessible. Look, it's Diddy. It's not scary. It's not frightening. It's very accessible. It's like a pocket-sized guide to self-help. So I've probably read 1,000 self-help books, and this is like distilling everything I've learned into one guide for anyone who thinks self-help isn't for them, or anyone who feels overwhelmed by all the choice. I've read 1,000 self-help books. You don't have to. So instead, beginner's guide, everything's in there. So yeah, this is my first event talking about it live. So I'm a bit overexcited. So you might need to slow me down. Nervous system is like this.
But you haven't just written this book, have you? Because you've got the Shelf Help podcast and maybe speak a little bit about your background around book clubs and things, because my people might not know that.
Yeah, sure. So I was a journalist for many years, about 15 years as a journalist on some of the world's biggest newspapers and websites, some quite infamous ones, quite a high pressure, high stress environment, which was brilliant and terrible in equal measure, probably. And I burnt out, and that was 10 years ago. And that's when I picked up my first self-help book. And so I was between jobs, unemployed, having left my media career. And then I started reading these books, and I didn't know, I'd never done any kind of personal development. I hadn't ever spent any time thinking about what I wanted from life, what I was doing with my life. I was never really intentional. I think I just reacted to life a lot. And I started learning all this stuff in books, and my current friendship group and my husband were like, we love that you love these books. However, we don't want to keep hearing about Paul McKenna or feel the fear and do it anyway. So I had to go and find some new friends. So I started a little book club where I lived in West London, like a local book club, people meeting. I'd never been to a book club before, but I just felt like I needed to find some friends to talk to about these books. And then these meetups just grew really organically. And I think it's because we were connecting over these like universal topics of personal development and learning about ourselves, self-discovery, self-reflection. And then Shelf-Help started about 8 years ago, and then it's just grown and grown. In lockdown, we created an online book club. I did create an online book club, and now it lives on Substack. So that is where we read books together. Every 2 months I choose a different book, and it's always a self-help book, and it's always along the lines of tools that we can use to make ourselves feel healthier and happier, and very much celebrating self-help. So I think we're very much on the same page, Jo. I think about this, where it's learning things that can help us feel better in the day-to-day. I found self-help at a real kind of crisis moment, I suppose. But what I would love for this little book and for everything I do with my interviewing authors or in the book club or in my workshops is sharing tools that mean people don't need to get to that crisis moment, or people don't need to get to the SOS point. So yeah, I made self-help my job, which is basically, do you remember I came on your podcast? And this hasn't gone live yet, but I know you've talked about it. So people know that your podcast is about mornings. And I think I'm going to share this because it's quite pertinent, I think. So this book is the first self-help book I ever read, and it's Paul McKenna, Change Your Life in 7 Days. And I joke that it took me a year to read this book because everything in it was so new. And this is why I needed to find people to talk to about it. But the first question in Paul's book, and I open my book with it, is: a miracle has happened. You wake up in your dream life tomorrow and what does it look like? And the question is, what's your dream life? And I didn't know. Like, I'd never thought about it. And the fact I couldn't answer the question is what sent me on this journey of discovering self-help. And then on your podcast, you asked me a question about what's been your at the end of your, oh, I'm not going to say the whole question.
No, it's fine. It's fine. You can say.
It was a similar, like, what's your dream morning? And I said on your podcast, well, my life now is my dream morning, which at the time I was like, that is such a lame answer. But that's 10 years since I couldn't answer the question because, and just like so much has happened since then. So I feel like this launch party, this book is like, it's a celebration of getting a book out in the world, which is an achievement. I know because I interview authors all the time. It's a big deal. But it's also for me a real celebration of 10 years of doing this inner work and finding it difficult sometimes, finding it challenging sometimes. But the other side of it is just everything is so different. And I'm so happy and grateful that I've been able to do this and that I now get to share it with everyone. That's like the best bit.
And can you speak a little bit about how the book came into the world, like how you birthed the book? Because you've gone a slightly different publishing route to the traditional route. Do you want to talk us a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So I am, this book is published with the Pound Project. And so the Pound Project is an independent publisher, and it's a crowdfund model. So it's limited edition. So for 3 weeks, we have a book campaign which starts today and finishes on the 26th of May. And that's the only time that you can buy the book. So it's a petite book. So it's a bit smaller than your average book. It's around 10,000 words. And JP, the founder of the Pound Project, his ethos is small change, one story at a time. Maybe it's the other way around, but it's the idea of small things and small actions can create big change. And that really speaks to me and my work in self-help. And that's what I want people to understand, that small things can create big change for you. So the Pound Project as a publishing model, if there's any writers watching, it's so different. I think I pitched the idea towards the end of last year. JP said yes. And then it was like, yeah, fine, let's do May. So it's very... I think the traditional publishing model, as far as I know from interviewing authors, and you know this too, is there's a lot of more going back and forth and edits and things like that. But I think with a book like this, it's very much, I've been told it's very much my project, and JP's helping me get it out into the world. So it's very... I'm very involved in marketing it. I've been involved in designing the layout of the copy. It's all about my method. It's in the colours of my brand, yellow and white. So I feel like it's very much like a personal project that I'm able to now share through a publisher.
And does that mean that there's a small window of time that people can buy it then once it's ended?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's just the 3 weeks. So from now until the 26th of May. Website just went live sneakily. Supposed to be at 7:00 tonight. But somebody just messaged me and said, I bought one. I'm like, well, okay, let's hope it's all working. So it's 3 weeks only. And from a point of view, from a promotion point of view, I feel like I can give a lot of energy for 3 weeks and then I'll go into hibernation after. But I've also done cool stuff like, I haven't got it here. I should have. I've got merch to go with it. So we've got book bags and we've got caps and we've done a bookmark and things like that. So there's been loads of it's been really fun to do all the different elements of selling a book, because writing the book is one thing, and I loved the writing process. I loved so much. I just took myself away, turned my email off, took Instagram off my phone, and just squirreled away. And I was a writer for a week, and I am a writer, so I kind of should be writing, but I'm also running a business and doing a part-time job and doing all these other things. So the writing part of it was just delicious, and I loved it. Hi, Tammy. I can see some guys.
Yeah, if anyone has any questions, pop them in the chat, because I can put them to Tony as well. I'm seeing that. We're also going to be putting the contact info, so I'll be posting this because people are saying, where's the link? I couldn't put the link when I made the live, but I will when I'm posting it again. Don't worry, we will have the links there if people want to purchase the book. What do you find about because what I've found with the writing process, because like you, I was really surprised how much I enjoyed the writing process, because it is like just being in a room being like, well, what do you think about this, Jo? And then being like, well, I think and it's actually really nice. But it's this very strange thing, isn't it, where it's a very private experience where you're basically just all in your own head, and then you are having to take this private experience and make it public. How have you found that transition, Tony?
Well, I think I've been spending the last 10 years talking about myself, which which isn't exact. That's not how I meant it to sound. However, historically, pre self-help, let's say, so 10 years ago, Tony 1.0 did never talked about feelings, didn't really talk about herself, was a very good listener, and very good take care of people pretty well, but was quite closed off, I would say, to myself and to others. That was just kind of how I operated. And then when I started sharing these books with people and running these meetups, and I realized that we were going to have to start talking about feelings, because that's what self-development and personal development is. It's like, what do you think about this? What do you feel about this? Why do you behave that way? Why do you think that's happened? What are the limiting beliefs around this? So all these conversation threads were coming up in our meetups. And obviously, as the founder, I have to do what I'm asking other people to do. So despite having never been to a book club before and not really being very good at talking about my feelings, I have learned to I've learned how to do it. And I've also learned that connecting by being vulnerable and open is actually the best kind of connection. Like, previously, I mean, I've got great friendships, I've got great relationships, but I feel like they never really knew all of me. And I definitely had pockets of different friends and groups, so work friends, going out friends, home friends. And I didn't ever really let them mesh, because I felt like I was a different version of myself with all these different people. And so doing this 10 years of self-help work and leading a self-help community and hosting workshops around encouraging people to dive into these topics has meant that I have had to, and also now I'm fine. I'm fine telling my story, because I feel I understand the power of it, as in the power to make me feel better about things that have happened and make me feel less lonely, but also to be able to connect with other people. So I really feel that self-help is a bit of a misnomer. So the name self-help doesn't need to be done by yourself. I think we talked about this before. And reading in community and doing this kind of work in community is just so powerful, because it just makes you realize that you're not alone. These are universal feelings and challenges. Your situation might be very individual, but there will be people who have gone through similar before. And if you can connect with these people and get different perspectives and get support from them as well, then makes such a big difference. So I think having it in a book is another step, isn't it? Because it is a bit like people I don't know. Do you want to read about my story? So in the book, it's a 3-step process, and at each of the steps, I share a vignette, I suppose, from my own life. And when I was sitting in my little writing cocoon, I was like, yeah, this is good. I think this is good. It's going to be helpful. Let's share this. And then I'm thinking about, I don't know, my mum reading it or my husband reading it, and they kind of know, because they've been there with that version of me, but still sharing it in such a it's private. A lot of it's private stuff that I haven't shared before. So that is it's another level, isn't it?
And has your mum and your husband read it yet?
No one's read it.
Nobody's read it.
No one's read it yet.
So if
me and the publisher are the only people that know about the book so far,
and the people who've just said they've ordered it on the chat,
and all of you lovely people who are ordering it online.
That's so exciting. What would you say to people? Because I know that self-help has got a bit of a, it's become such an ubiquitous word. It's become such a word in our society that it's almost shorthand. And I know that there's a lot of negative connotations with the terms self-help now. What would you say the biggest misconceptions in the general public people have to the term self-help?
Yeah, I do think maybe it needs a bit of a makeover, doesn't it? Like, I used to say, I want to make self-help cool and I want everyone to read self-help. And then after giving lots of people books that they didn't really ask for, or advice, unsolicited advice, I realized that you have to be ready to do this work, right? So, but I do find it interesting that, like, self-help, personal development, self-development, personal growth, to me, they all mean the same thing. And I feel like what they really are, as I said earlier, giving yourself tools to support your life and to be the healthiest, happiest version of you. So I think anyone who doesn't want to read self-help because they feel like it's a bit naff, or they don't trust it, or that they just have had a bad experience with it, maybe it's just about reframing. Like, I love a reframe. Language is so important, isn't it? So let's not call it self-help if that's gonna be a barrier to you reading it. Don't call it self-help, call it personal growth, because that to me is what it is. It's about looking forward and looking at how you can do things differently, deciding who you want to be, where you want to be, and then what you need to get you there. So, like, habits is self-health, routines is self-health, learning how to do, like, learning to be fit is self-help to me. They're just different ways. Like, how can you help yourself, really? So the idea of the book being called You, I wanted it to just be like a really simple title, because everybody has a relationship with themselves, whether they are aware of it and connected to it or not. And if you're not connected to it, like I wasn't connected to myself, my relationship with myself was pretty terrible when I didn't really know what I wanted the dream life to look like. Like, if you're not connected to it, then that is still a relationship. So it's something that can be looked at and worked on. I don't know if we want to say work, because I don't want to put people off, but I've started saying to the guys in my community, like, all this information, it's data, right? So if you are doing some self-discovery and you're asking some questions about, why do I behave this way? Why do I talk to myself this way? Why do I have these thoughts? Whatever answers you're coming up with, don't let that make you think, don't let that make you think differently about yourself. It's just data, it's just information. So, and then what you do with that information is the useful part. So most people would say that self-help, the first step of self-help is awareness. So the idea that you know you want something to change. So for me, reading the book and thinking, does everybody else know how they want their life to look in tomorrow or in a year or 10 years? And then realizing that lots of people did. And that's how you set goals and that's how you make plans. So having that awareness, I think that's what self-help really does. It gives us that, data, isn't it? It's information.
And if somebody hasn't read any self-help at all, what would you tell them to start with?
Well, I did do a little bibliotherapy prescription for you, but I suppose
Yes.
it depends. I suppose it depends on what you're looking. What are your issues? What are your challenges?
Pop
So,
them in the chat if anyone's got a one, and we'll see if there's a prescription.
But I did. I pulled out some books actually from the collection. So these are the books that we've read. 64 books with the Shelf Help Club over 8 years. And because you mentioned we were going to talk about, like, reading as self-care, so I thought the idea of reading as self-care to me is that there's two different ways to look at that. There's one which is, self-care is really finding out what you need, isn't it? It's like, what do you need for your physical health, your emotional health, your mental health? But thinking about what you need and then making sure you are well resourced in those areas. So reading as self-care could be understanding that you are an anxious person, so you want to learn more about that because there's books there about that. So I'm taking care of myself because I'm aware that something needs to be worked on, and I'm going to do that. Or you have self-care as a ritual and as a way to, as something to support you. So something to soothe your nervous system, because there's science around it, reducing anxiety and helping us feel more mindful and more calm. So some of the books I pulled out today are about self-care, because I think if you're at a position where you just feel super stressed and something needs to change, but you're not sure what, you're probably in a position where you don't have much left in the tank, and you don't really want to be diving into a Tony Robbins like super book, right? Or you don't want to be told you have to just let them do stuff when it's really making you sad. So I feel like the book that we read recently is called Glimmers, which is by Nadia Narain and Katia Narain Phillips, and that is glimmers are the opposite of triggers, and this is just the idea of looking for magical moments that will help you feel like that will help soothe your nervous system. I love anything by Susie Redding. Do you know Susie Redding? She's my self-care guru.
I think I follow her on Substack. She's on Substack,
Oh, do you?
isn't she?
She's gorgeous. We read 2 of her books in the club. So this one's called Self-Care for Tough Times, and she is she's a yoga teacher, she's a psychologist, and she's written 10 books, I think, about self-care. And so in lockdown, when we first moved the community online, we read Self-Care for Tough Times together, because it was a tough time, wasn't it? And the idea of self-care then definitely wasn't about, like we talk about, kind of like bubble baths and treating yourself. Self-care then was, I just need to be able to get out of bed and sort the kids out, even though the world is going to hell. So Self-Care for Tough Times and books like that are about kind of small practices that when you don't have anything left in the tank, you can incorporate into your day and into your life. So I love Susie Redding. I love anything about that. I love this book. I've got time to talk to you about this one. Look how cool the cover is anyway, for a start. I Heart Me by Dr. David Hamilton. David Hamilton I interviewed him actually for my book. So I interviewed a couple of authors who I've connected with, because a beautiful part about doing self-help as a job is I get to interview authors nearly every week. And so I'm learning from these people. And David Hamilton was an early supporter of mine and of self-help. And I Heart Me is all about self-love and self-compassion. And so if we're thinking about somewhere for people to start, I actually start my book with self-compassion, because self-love might feel very far away to some people if you're in a position like I was, where I didn't like myself. I hated myself. So to talk about self-love would be ridiculous, but self-compassion is doable even if you don't feel like you like yourself. So the idea that you can treat yourself as you would another human that might be suffering, or another human that might need something. So I think that's a nice place to start.
And is your book, you were saying about you had your own system within it. So how has that worked? Have you taken bits from the things that you've learned, or is this like a system for reading? How is your own system coming into it?
So the system is a 3-step process for self-development, and it's based on lots of things that I've read. But I think if you read a lot of self-help, you realize a lot of them say the same thing in different formats. So, and you will connect with different versions of. So there's David Hamilton, and there's also another book here called Self-Compassion by Dr. Kristin Neff. This one is full of research and nerdy stuff. David Hamilton's is full of ways to make yourself feel, ways to feel kinder to yourself. So when I was thinking about 10 years in, what have I learned and how do I describe self-help to people? Like, I love homework. I love reading. I'm always in my head. So, and I like a process. So when I started doing therapy at the same time as starting reading self-help like 10 years ago. And I would always say, what's my homework? What do I do next? And the therapist, as therapists love to do, there might be some in the chat here, said, no homework. You just need to go and think about and feel what we've talked about, which I'm just like, I need a process. So I've basically created the process that I needed. And I think there's like a paradox in self-help a little bit, where we want to be, and we're told to be accepting and grateful of where we are now, but also to hope for and get intention about creating a good life. And sometimes those two ways of being seem in conflict, but I think they're really, actually, they support each other. So when we're grateful and when we're accepting, then we can go to a place of daydreaming and thinking about that dream morning from a place of being grounded and having a good relationship with ourselves. So for me, it's about connecting with different versions of ourselves, the past version of ourselves, the present version of ourselves, and then the future version of ourselves. So the 3-step process kind of takes us through that. So a bit like Charles Dickens' Christmas Carol, but instead of ghosts, you have books. And then what the process does is help people. So self-discovery is the first stage, which is when we're reflecting back and looking at the question there is, what has shaped me? So what has shaped you, I should say. And that is, for some people who've never done any of this work, the idea that the way that they think or behave or feel is the result or the product of all these different influences that they had no control over is a bit mind-blowing. So it's simple ways to answer that. Then step 2 is to look forward. So looking at, what do you want that dream life to be? What do you want your life to look like going forward? And then the final step is like, what do you need to get you there? So what are the habits and routines and rituals and self-care, and how are you spending your time, your money, your energy? now as a way to get you to that kind of future self. So I've made that sound really complicated. This is the first time I've said it out loud. So I'm going to watch this back and be like, we need to make this more concise. But it's, the 3 steps really is like past, future, and then present. And I think a lot of what we do at Shelf Help and a lot of what I do is in that present, which is how can you support yourself now? What tools can you use now? There we go. That's a lovely tool, isn't it? A pet. Very soothing.
I don't think she's being soothing, though. I think she's trying to tell us that she wants some dinner. I think that's what she's trying to do.
It's time.
Yeah.
It's your alarm clock.
I don't think that is complicated at all. We've even got people saying in the chat that they get it, and we've also got a therapist agreeing with you that people who love homework hate it when the therapists tell them that they're not allowed to have any homework. So where do you think you are in that process personally now? In that, do you feel like you have managed to ingratiate all of those things, or like where do you feel personally with it?
Am I enlightened yet? Is that what?
That's the question.
I think. Well, what the finding is, which is great and terrible, depending on how you look at it. Like lots of things in life, is that we're always a work in progress, right? Forever, which to me now is very empowering. It's just like, tomorrow I'm not going to wake up and feel like done. I have read all these self-help books. I've interviewed lots of people. I work with people every day. I still am not the perfect version of myself, and I won't ever be, right? Because what is that? And that is constantly changing. I do have a really good relationship with myself. So I think for me, it was the question about your dream life. And to be able to answer that, I had to go back and look at why I couldn't answer it, or why I hadn't ever given myself the opportunity, or when I really dug into it, why I didn't feel like I deserved a nice life. Mm-hmm. So that is the self-discovery part. So I think for lots of people, even though you want something to change in the now, and you're looking at and feeling in your immediate environment, going back is the first step. And my therapy friends will vouch for this, I'm sure. So I've done that bit. I've started planning forward and visioning and dreaming about a nice life. I set big goals for myself now. I think when we did our podcast interview, I said something to you like, "Oh yeah, I'm nowhere near where I need to be. When I'm nowhere near where I want to be yet in the business." But I said it and you commented that I said it from a point of not of, "Oh no, I'm nowhere near it." Mm-hmm. Not just like, "Oh God, I've got big plans," which I do, and I feel very comfortable saying that now. So I feel like I'm really in the third step, which is just maintenance and being able to use the tools I have, use the strategies as needed. So some days are great. Like today has been nuts because it's launch day. I'm asking all these people to support and share me and buy my book, and it's like I couldn't be more visible. So I have 10 years ago, this would be unthinkable to me that I would have written a book on how to live a good life and how to look after yourself and be supported by a wholesome, wholehearted, successful person like yourself. Like honestly, Jo, it's blowing my mind thinking about the difference between the 10 years me and me 10 years ago. So I feel a bit kind of nervous this is happening, but I'm also so excited because I'm just like, well, I've written a book, and I want it to help people, and if they don't like it, I'll get over it. They'll get over it, and that's okay. Whereas, I would never even have written a book 10 years ago, but if somebody said to me, "I don't like your book," or "I don't think it's a good idea," I would have been crushed. But now I just think, okay, I love that for you. I do.
Do you think having read so many books has given you a sense of reality around books, because you can see that you cannot like a book for a reason that isn't that you think that the author is terrible and you think it's a bad book, you can just not vibe with it? Do you think that's given you a perspective on, or do you think it's always going to be your baby and it's always going to be hard?
Yeah, no, I totally get that, because there's some books that, like in our community, we all love self-help, right? But we don't all love the same books. And I've picked up, you might have this experience as well. I picked up the same book at different times, and it's spoken to me in different ways. Like I still haven't read The Power of Now. I cannot do it. Like I feel like a fraud saying that, being a self-help expert or addict or whatever I am. But I just can't get on with it. And so there are some books books that I feel like, I don't think Eckhart Tolle is a bad author, do I? I don't think that all the people that have read it and connected with it are different species of me. It just is not speaking my language at the moment. And so I really hope that, I think my book is like, it's you, the beginner's guide. So hopefully from that, people will understand that it's all about helping them create a better relationship with themselves. So I'm asking some big questions and I'm giving some prompts as into how they can start finding out the answers. But probably by the end of the book, like what I really hope by the end of the book is that people have loads more questions, because the Paul McKenna book that I read, it took me a year and then 10 years really to change my life. It took me so long because I was just jumping off, like, I didn't know that about this. I didn't know that about that. Really? I don't need to say yes to people all the time. Really? I don't need to believe everything I think. Like, these things were just mind blowing to me. And they sent me off on this whole rabbit hole of reading 1,000 self-help books and turning it into my like purpose and my job. So I feel like the right book quite often will come along at the right time. Being part of a self-help book club like mine means that someone else is choosing the book. And I have asked my guys, loads of my guys are on, I can see tonight. Hello, my loves. I do say to people sometimes, do you want to pick the books? Like, or do you want to do a vote? And generally I get the pushback is no, like, because I've chosen books sometimes that people at the beginning or at the end, they would say, I would never have read this book because I don't feel like it speaks to me. But I choose books for, now I choose books because I feel like they're good talking points, or they're addressing something that needs to be addressed either in the community or in modern life generally. And I think we all take something from, and if you take one thing from a book, isn't it worth reading? Because that thing from a self-help book can change your life.
And what do you think it was 10 years ago that meant that you couldn't picture your ideal life? Because you said earlier, you said that you hadn't given yourself, I can't remember the exact wording of it, but it was something that you hadn't given yourself the chance to dream of it. What do you think was the block?
I didn't know it was an option. Like, I didn't know that's how people lived. I had, like, with hindsight, I a lot of my life was hustle, which I think is that. So to get to a certain university, to get a job in journalism, to move to London, they were always things that were like top of my mind. But I don't think I didn't think about it from a point of strategic planning of life. It was just like, I need that to happen. I'm going to make it happen. So I think then when I got to a point of, like, I was in my late 30s, and I'd kind of been just been following a path that I'd strived for ages, and then I was on it. So then I was just in it, and I just followed this path. And so I didn't, and also the path of being a tabloid journalist and working for things like the Mail Online is, you don't really have much time to spend doing much expansive thinking, I would say. So I hadn't really given myself the time. And then when I dug into it, ultimately, I didn't really think that I deserved a good life, or that it was ever going to happen for me. So a lot of my self-help work has been unpicking that and understanding that, and kind of being compassionate to myself about that. So I think something like a book like this, and when we're talking about reading as self-care, it's like the chance to kind of get off the scroll, get out of your, like, even if you do have a busy job, where can you find pockets in your life and in your week? Maybe it's on the mat, like with you guys, or maybe it's on the commute and you're just not on your phone, or where can you find this time to just give yourself a bit of time to think about what life could be like, or what you would like life to be like? Because all of this, like I said, is just data, right? And if you don't give yourself a chance to do it, then you'll never know.
I think it's, for me, one of the biggest things has been understanding the difference between the things that you have control over and the things that you don't have control over. So there's a thing in yoga about, in Buddhism as well, and I think it's in a lot of self-help books, about the two types of suffering. So there's like the type of suffering that you've got no control over whatsoever, just by the fact that you're human and you live in a human body, and that you know, there is suffering in life. And then there's the other type of suffering, which is the suffering that you create yourself. And it's quite often about your relationship to that first kind of suffering.
Mhm.
And I think that the comment that Marcus made about like economics and social economics in the chat, I think for me, coming from a working class background, that was like, for a long time, I was kind of like stuck in this mentality of, because I can't change everything, I can't change anything. And
Yeah.
then I think sometimes self-help goes too far the other way, where it's like, oh, you've got complete control over everything. And I think it's like finding that bit in the middle where it's like working out what you have got control over and what you haven't, and finding your autonomy in a world that has unfair systems that you can't control in it. And I think that what you were saying earlier about a lot of the times the messages are the same, they're just pitched differently so that you can
Hmm.
hear them. I feel like as my journey goes on, I need the same message, but I just need it in a different packaging again and
Yeah.
again. And do you have anything to say around that?
Yeah, I think the idea that we are responsible for ourselves it's actually really empowering, because if you are, lots of people are in situations that of not of their making, in difficult situations that are not of their making, but making yourself, not making yourself. If you are constantly unhappy and stressed and doing things that don't support yourself, it's not going to make your situation any easier. So understanding, I think, that things might not be your fault, but you are your responsibility, means that you can then look at what, as you just said, Jo, like, what can you control? What's in your control? What's in your control might be how you spend your time or how you spend your money, or maybe if both of those things aren't in your control, how you're spending your energy and your attention. So there's once you know that and can understand that, then that actually makes you feel better about life, because you think you're not just at the whim of these systems and other people. And I think it's a bit more empowering, isn't it?
Yeah, because then you can actually have you can make change, and I think sometimes that's, like you were saying earlier about, well, I just hadn't even crossed my mind that that was something I could do when it was coming up with your perfect morning. I think that is sometimes the key, isn't it, of being like, oh, I I can I can do that. That's
Yeah.
something I could just not do that, or I could do a bit more of that, like having that control, um, and daring to dream. I remember when we did our podcast, and you said, it was interesting that you pulled up the thing where you had said, um, "Oh, I'm not where I want to be in my business," because when I heard that, I was so empowered by you saying that, because I think it's so rare that you hear women, especially, say it in a very matter of fact way, not from a place of like striving, not from a place of like dysregulation. You were just like, I've got I've got goals and I want
Yeah.
to get there. And I was like, oh, that's so empowering to hear. And I think it's there was another thing that you said in another conversation that we'd had, where you were saying that you need to be able to see it before you can be it. And you feel that by sharing your goals and sharing your journey, it empowers other people to then be able to do it too. And I just think that is so true and beautiful. And was that part of the reason why you wrote the book? Like, who did you have in mind when you wrote the book to read it?
Yeah, I think originally my idea about a book was a beginner's guide to self-help. So lots of different tips and tricks and all that kind of stuff. But ultimately, it only works when I share how it has helped me, right? There's so many self-help books out there, we know, and there's lots of experts out there, and there's lots of psychologists and neuroscientists. And I interview people like this all the time. And I love getting their expert take on one thing. But I think, having thought about, I've got 10 years worth of knowledge now in this space, but actually the best proof that this shit works is me and my life and how I feel about myself. Like, as I said, Jo, earlier, like, I can't, the difference between me then and me now. Like outwardly, I live in a different part of the country. I have a very different job, but I was like addicted to booze. I was unemployed. I was miserable. I hated myself. I didn't see any potential future that was good. Like so I was in a place where, if you'd have told me to read a book and that would help me, I would have said that you don't understand how horrible my life is and how hard it is and how it's difficult. It's impossible to change. And now I don't have any prospects. And it was like I was in that place of, nothing's going to change because this is just my life, and very defeatist and very like victim mentality, which is what some people might recognize if they read some self-help. So I think what I want to do with you, the beginner's guide, a nice bright yellow and white book, is just to show people that like if I can move from there to someone who spends their days telling people or giving people advice on how to improve their lives, and also someone who I love my life now. And like I said to you in that interview, there's loads of stuff that I want to do and there's things that I would change. I'm not happy every single day, but I'm not self-loathing every single day. I'm never self-loathing. So even when I have my worst days, I have a relationship with myself that means that I can ride it out and that tomorrow is a better day. So although the book was meant to be like a kind of resource, I suppose, I think I felt like I assumed or I imagined it to be an actual guide. It's basically a guide, but pulling in experience of my own from being on this journey. And on this journey as like a 38-year-old woman, right? So, I mean, a lot of people in the community are a similar age to me, but not everybody. And it makes me so happy when someone who's 20 is reading self-help. And people can be like, I know people get snobby about it and they're just like, what do they need to worry about? They haven't lived a life. They haven't got all the problems we have. It's just like, we all have our own challenges. And so we all need support in different ways, and we'll all relate to different types of personal development. And sometimes I do think, oh my God, if 20 years ago I knew this stuff existed, I would have saved so much money and brain cells. And I mean, I'm happy it was all, I believe it all happened for a reason. But like, why aren't we taught this stuff in school? Like, why?
And you have had this process where you've read a lot, and that has that has changed your life. Did you have a different relationship to writing? Did writing about it teach you anything that you hadn't, or solidify anything that you hadn't got just from the reading?
Yeah, I think so, because I feel like after my little week of squirreling away and writing these personal stories, I felt a bit like, well done. Like, go girl. I think because like reading the books, quite often it's very obviously it's very mind based, right? And a lot of the stuff that I've been reading lately and sharing lately is about more nervous system stuff and like getting into the body. And I really feel like writing about how self-help has helped me, rather than just saying, this book says we should do this, so let's do it and we'll all feel better. But like actually writing about how self-help has helped me, I feel it in my body. Like I feel like I've even now got a little bit of like goosebumpy feeling of like, this is like, it's good. I'm like, this is good to share this stuff. It's like, it's so important. And so it's great to be able to, like, JP, my publisher, is saying, you need to tell people how hard it is to talk about your own story when you're used to talking about other people's books. Mm-hmm. Because as I've already done on this interview, I love to share other people's books and I love to share other people's advice and opinions. But I think a bit of that is like, because it's not mine. So like someone else said this about depression or anxiety or sleep or self-care or whatever it is. But for me to say, this is what I think, and this is how I used it, and this is, and I'm standing behind that, like that is it's another layer of visibility, which is something I'm talking to Claire Venus about a lot at the moment. Like that idea of, I hope you like it. I hope you like it. But like, as I said to you, I hope I'm in a place where like if people don't like it, then that's fine. But yeah, it definitely gets to it's another level of self-knowledge, isn't it? And like self-authorship is a term that I'm loving at the moment. And the idea that self-authorship is that you can write your own story, like you can write your own life. And I feel like that really is what I'm trying to share I don't know if that's a term that's quite catchy enough, but self-help for now. But self-authorship is the goal, I think, for anyone who wants to read this book.
Well, it's hard, isn't it? Because it's just a different layer of, like you say, it's a different layer of visibility, but also if somebody doesn't like it, it is your words that they're not liking. How are you holding your nervous system in that?
Well, you'll be very proud of me. So today's it's first day of launch day, and it's like I said, it's a 3-week campaign. So it's intense, and I've got a live every day for 3 weeks. Maybe not weekends, maybe one in Australia. I'm writing loads of pieces. I'm sharing. So I thought I need to start every day as the version of me that I would want to be doing a book launch. So I got up early, no alarm, as I told you in our interview. Woke up at 6 and just went for a super long walk. Left my phone, even though there's a million things to do and there's websites to snag and there's yellow squares to send out to people. I was just like, I need to start the day not getting straight on my laptop. Like I have spent the last 2 weeks getting up at 5 and being on my laptop. I'm like, no, for this 3 weeks, I'm going to get into nature. I'm going to get outside. I'm going to have a good breakfast. I'm going to take care of myself. So this is because that's the thing, isn't it? We have to practice what we preach, you and I. And so for me, working as a tabloid journalist and editor, I burnt myself out. Like I didn't do myself any favors because I also went out hard and worked hard. So I burnt myself out. And now I'm sharing life advice and telling people to implement it. So I need to do it myself. Like I want to build this business and I want to write a book and I want to have a good life from a place of a regulated nervous system and a healthy body and a healthy mind and good relationships and all the stuff that I kind of preach. So I am going to be working hard over the next few weeks, but I'm also, because I now know that I need to take it easy. I'm not going to be drinking. I'm not going to be staying up late. I'm not going to be going wild until after May the 26th, when I might.
And how do you think your background as a journalist has helped you with that piece of like your voice? Because I think one of the things with the visibility that's very difficult, and I'm imagining there's a lot of people on watching this that are authors themselves or have Substacks, and something that a lot of people struggle with, and I struggle with, is the putting your opinion out there. And even though, logically you can understand that if people disagree with you, then they're not necessarily thinking you're a bad person, but that's not necessarily how it feels. And also, but not saying it, not standing in your truth is a different kind of dysregulation. So you kind of have to go through that discomfort in order to be regulated and embodied. Do you think your background as a journalist, and especially in places where they maybe weren't as worried about controversy as other places, do you think that's helped or hindered you when it's come to giving your opinion about things?
I think it's helped me a lot, actually, because when you write for a news organisation, especially a daily or hourly, is it? So I worked for a daily newspaper, biggest in the world, and then I worked for the biggest website in the world. And so when you're writing constantly on deadline for an editor, that you can't take it personally. So you'll get feedback, and sometimes you'll get feedback shouted across the news desk full of people that something was absolutely shit. Like you very rarely got it if it was good. Like if nothing was said, you just were like, oh, I'll give myself a pat on the back for that. But I think so learning to just write to deadline and not have any emotional attachment to it has actually stood me in good stead now, because I'm emotionally involved because it's my story, but I appreciate that words are my words might not be the words for everybody, and that's fine. So I think it helped me. You grow a thick skin working, not just for newspapers, but I think anyone who works big company where you are reporting to people who just need stuff fast versus caring about how you do it or how you're feeling about doing it, then that's really good training ground, I think.
And what would you say to anyone who is like maybe has that calling to share their story but is feeling too vulnerable to? What would your advice to them be?
Do you mean as in if they were wanted to write, or just
Yeah,
sharing what's going on for
just
them?
just if it, so I am imagining, because I always think on Substack that a lot of the people who watch the things are also writers as well. So I just always have them in my mind when I'm doing these things. It, if with writers, so
Yeah.
if yeah, what would you say to writers?
I think it's just practice, right? It's just getting used to doing things. So for what writing or for anything, like for me, public speaking was something like going live and things like that. I hated for so long, but now I've done it so many times. I look forward to it. So weird, because it's like, oh, I get to hang out with cool people. I get to like meet people in the chat and stuff. Whereas previously, the fear of being seen or not doing it right or not doing it perfect would stop me. So I think it's about getting into a habit and just writing, regardless of if you think anybody's reading. So I interviewed Jenny Godfrey. Do you know the
Oh,
author?
she came on my podcast. She's
Oh, did she?
gorgeous. Yeah, she's
Love her.
absolutely
Love
gorgeous.
her. And she's a writing nerd, and I love her so
Yeah.
much because she talks about how she takes it seriously as a job, and she's like
Mhm.
quite a girly swat about writing. But she said she used Substack after her first novel. So she had complete, the first novel was like instant Sunday Times bestseller, and it was her debut novel. So she broke all these records, and then they're just like, okay, number two. And she just was in this creative and writing block. And so she just started writing on Substack. So every week she was giving herself that deadline, and she didn't care about how many people were reading it, and she didn't worry too much about finessing it. It was just like, every week I'm going to send out a piece of work. And at the beginning she found it very difficult, but but with that came a routine and a rhythm, and a creativity came back. She also read The Artist's Way, and lots of people, I haven't read that, but a lot of writers that I interview have read it and use it, and especially when they're in a place of creative funk, shall we say.
I did it. I did it in my
Did you?
20s. Hmm.
Oh, yeah. Well,
And
do you think that's right then? That would be a good thing for
yeah,
people to read, yeah?
I think it's absolutely brilliant. And I actually, so full confession time, I did half of it
Yeah,
and then
it's a safe
stopped doing it
space.
and then came back to it and did so. But I've done the first half maybe 20 times.
Okay.
I've never managed to do the
What
full
happens,
thing.
Jo, in the middle? Is there something that you don't like to do, or do you just get
Um,
distracted?
I get distracted, and it's the whole taking yourself out for creative dates. And I think I think it's probably really good if you have a life where you don't have much time, but like, because I don't have children and I have quite a lot of time and quite a
Yeah.
lot of like, it's kind of like embedded into my life anyway. But the morning pages and I actually talk about it in the book that I'm writing at the minute, the Yoga for Tired People book, doing the writing, the continuous writing, because it was something we were taught to do it at university, but that was all around like unlocking your creativity for then to be read. Whereas
Mhm.
she's very like, you do your continuous writing, but then you like put it in the bin and you
Don't worry
never
about
read
it.
it. Don't worry
Yeah.
about it. Don't read it. Don't. And that's something like I have taken that. I do that. I wouldn't say it was a daily practice because it's not something that I do at a particular time every day, but I do it every day. So at some point in the day, I will do continuous writing, because
Hmm.
it's just a way for me to like. I see it like a meditation. It's like a different way for me to meditate. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
brilliant.
Well, I suppose that illustrates, doesn't it, perfectly the idea of, if you take something from a book, it's
Mhm.
it's worth reading or half reading. Like, maybe you'll never finish it, and that doesn't really matter, does it? Because what you've taken from that is
Mhm.
actually now a fundamental part of your day and of how
Yeah,
you look after yourself. So that's like gold, isn't it?
absolutely. And I think that I think that the author would have, and I don't know, I've never, I'm just complete, I'm just making this up. This is
Julia
complete
Cameron, isn't
projection.
it? I think.
Yeah, I'm like, she wouldn't mind.
It's what she would have wanted.
It's what she would have wanted. My totally made up version of her in my head. It's what she would have wanted. But yeah, but exactly as you're saying, all you can ever hope with anything that you ever make is that somebody resonates with one piece of it, isn't it? And it makes them see something differently, or they try something new. And yeah.
Yeah, totally. That's why we do it, right? Isn't it? I think it's being creative and running a business. And I think working in well-being, it can be, I mean, world's smallest violin, but it can be hard because I know, like, this is a first world problem, maybe, or maybe not, because I think the challenges are that it's like you are supporting other people and you are sharing all this stuff about yourself. So it's important that we learn how to look after ourselves, isn't it? And then that we share how we're doing that. Like that is what that I think that's what our work is. That's what our service is. And we do it in different ways. You do it through the yoga practice and everything you do around that. I do it through introducing to people through ideas through books. But ultimately, I think what we both do is like we're sharing these tools that people can go on and use forever.
Yeah. And I think one of, again, world's tiniest violin, I think holding that thing of, because sometimes you can be like, well, who am I to have this lovely life?
Mm.
And then you're like, but if even I can't do it, then how can I teach other people to do it? Do you know what I mean? It's like sometimes you have to hold strong to like, um, I just, I am allowed to have nice things in my life. Like that can be hard too.
Yeah. And like, who are you not to? Who are you not to
Mhm.
be? Right. The Marianne Williamson quote. It's just like that. Dude, I can't remember the full quote now, but people look it up if you haven't heard it. But the idea of like, who am I to be to be bright and shiny and do great things? It's like, well, who are you not to? Like, we can all do it. Like, that's the abundant mindset, isn't it? Or that's the way of looking at life, as in, just because you have something doesn't mean I can't have it as well. So I feel like when we do things like even conversations like this, when we write a book, when we share our classes for free, or when we ask people to pay for stuff, it's like we're valuing ourselves, but we're not saying that we're more valuable than anyone else. Just like we're just maybe a bit further along the confidence track or the visibility track, or maybe like for me, it was desperation that led me to reading that first self-help book. So that's how I got there. So I think it's about if we can share that and still come at it from a place of like, it's good to want to be successful. It's good to want, because if you're successful, you can help more people. That's what I'm like. Money and success has been is a real crux for me, and it's something I'm working on still, and it's something I talk about in the book. But the idea of like, well, if you say you want to help people, or you say you want to impact people, or you say you want people to know about this thing, then how are they ever going to know about it unless you make a success of your business or of yourself or of your book or whatever it is?
I absolutely love that. What a lovely note to finish this conversation on. And if people are wanting to buy your book, which they should, because it's going to be wonderful. I can't wait to get my copy, and they've only got 3 weeks to buy it because of the way that the publishing thing is. Where I will put a link in the post. But is there anything else they need to know?
No, you can go to the Pound Project website now. So it's poundproject.co.uk/you. And you can pick up a copy of the book, $7.99. The digibook's only $1.99. We're also doing lots of lovely merch. And we are doing, some people might like this, we're doing a special book club deal. So if people are in a book club or work for a big company or have a group that might like to read it together, I think if you buy 10 copies, you get a really nice price and you get me to come and do a guided book club for you. So isn't that great?
Oh, that's wonderful. I didn't know that. That's so good.
Yeah. Well, it's like that's it. Like sharing self-help is really what I love to talk about and
Yeah.
what I want to encourage and what I try and do, what I do with self-help and with my work. So yeah, the idea of reading a book like this with your friends or with colleagues or classmates or whatever, I think is I would love that. That's my dream. That's my vision, Jo, is to see people sitting around in circles with my book and talking about the book being a reason for them to talk about these big expansive themes.
Well, let's make that a reality. We'll get lots of your books sold. And if you've enjoyed the conversation with me and Tony, my podcast, the first episode is coming out next Wednesday.
Yeah.
It's called Before the Work Begins, and you can follow that on Substack. So every week I will be talking to a creative person about how they start their morning. So whether they're doing ice baths at 5 a.m. or if they're just like everyone else and they're just pushing their children out of the door with some toast. And I've got a lovely conversation with Tony coming up for that. So I will put that in the link as well. But thank you so much, Tony, and thank you all so much in the chat as well. It's been lovely.
Thanks,
Bye,
Jo.
everyone.
Thank you for having me. Thanks for being here, everybody, and your lovely questions and stuff. Take care.
Bye.